Emily Jones, a 38-year-old businesswoman from Chicago, is lying in a hospital room, abandoned by her children. Her condition is deteriorating, but instead of support, her son and daughter come with a notary to collect her inheritance. But when Emily reveals her secret plan, they are in for a shocking twist. The wealth they were counting on is no longer in their hands. Will she be able to find justice and her true family in her final days? Emily Jones lay in the sterile hospital bed, the faint hum of machines filling the small room on the 5th floor of Chicago General. At 38, she was too young to feel this broken, her body weakened by a relentless illness that had crept up over the past year. The once vibrant real estate mogul who'd built a thriving company from scratch now stared at the ceiling, her dark hair splayed across the pillow, her hazel eyes dulled by exhaustion. The room smelled of antiseptic and regret, a far cry from the polished office she'd once commanded on Michigan Avenue. Outside, the city buzzed with life, cars honking, wind whipping through the skyscrapers. But in here, time crawled, each breath a quiet battle. She reached for the phone on the bedside table, her fingers trembling slightly as she dialed her son, Jake. At 22, he was supposed to be her pride and joy, the one she'd raised to take over the family business someday. The line rang, each tone stretching longer than the last, as if mocking her hope. Finally, a gruff voice answered. "Yeah, Mom, what's up?" Jake's tone was clipped, impatient, like she'd interrupted something far more important. "Jake," Emily said, her voice soft but laced with a fragile thread of hope. "I was thinking, maybe you could stop by today? It's been a while." She hated how small she sounded, how much she needed him to say yes. A heavy sigh crackled through the speaker. "Mom, I've told you I'm swamped. The firm's a mess right now. I'm basically running it single-handedly since you've been out. I don't have time to play visitor." His words stung, sharp and cold, slicing through the thin veil of optimism she'd clung to. She could picture him in her office, feet propped on the desk, barking orders at her loyal staff, acting like he'd built it all himself. "It's not about playing visitor," she replied, forcing steadiness into her tone. I like to see you, talk to you. It's been months, Jake." Her chest tightened as she spoke, the weight of his absence pressing harder than the illness ever could. "Look, Mom," he snapped, cutting her off. "My life's all work right now. You know that. And besides, Dad's old partner, Tom, is still handling the big stuff. What do you even need me for? To hold your hand?" The irritation in his voice was palpable, like she was a burden he couldn't wait to shake off. Emily swallowed hard, her dry lips parting as she searched for words. "Tom's one thing, but you're my son. This is your family, Jake. Your home." She spoke quietly, almost afraid to push too hard and scare him away entirely. "Mom, I'm not made of steel, okay?" he shot back. "And Sophie's no help either. She's too busy with her perfect little life to lift a finger. It's all on me. You think I've got time to drop everything and run to you?" His words were a knife, twisting deeper with every syllable. Sophie, her 20-year-old daughter, hadn't even bothered to call in weeks. Emily had seen the Instagram posts, Sophie at brunches, laughing with friends, living like her mother's struggle didn't exist. "I haven't seen her in so long," Emily murmured, more to herself than to him. "She's trying, in her own way. She's got her own responsibilities." Jake barked a bitter laugh. "Responsibilities? Yeah, right. Her husband, her kid. Excuses, Mom. She's useless. And I'm done carrying everyone. I don't have time for this family drama." His voice rose, sharp and final, like a gavel slamming down. "Jake, please," Emily began, but the line went dead, replaced by the hollow beep of disconnection. She set the phone down, her hand pressing against her chest, as if she could stop the ache blooming there. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in, the expensive but faded decor, a remnant of her old life, mocking her isolation. She slid out of bed, her legs shaky, and shuffled to the window. Beyond the dusty glass, the early winter sunset painted the Chicago skyline in muted oranges and grays, a beauty she couldn't feel. She was alone, a discarded piece of a family she'd once held together. The next day, she tried again, dialing Jake's number with a stubborn flicker of hope. Her health was slipping, each breath a little harder, each movement a little slower. But what scared her more was the thought that her kids might never come unless she forced them to see the truth. The phone rang endlessly before Jake picked up, his voice dripping with annoyance. Mom, what now? I'm in a meeting. Jake, I need to tell you something, she said, gathering every ounce of strength to keep her voice steady. I'm not doing well. The doctors warned me months ago, but I didn't want to worry you. Now, I think I don't have much time left. Mom, what are you even saying? His tone shifted, but not to concern, more like exasperation. You need to see a doctor, not sit there waiting for some miracle. I know that, she said softly. But I just want to stay home, be with you and Sophie, even if it's just for a little while. Mom, this isn't up for debate, he interrupted. I'll talk to Sophie. We'll figure something out. But I've got to go. I'll call you back in 30. The line cut off again, leaving her staring at the phone, her hope crumbling. An hour later, Sophie called. Her voice was polite but distant, the kind of tone reserved for a chore. Mom, Jake says you're really sick. We've already arranged it. You're going to clinic tomorrow. They'll check you out, take care of you. Sophie, why? Emily pleaded, her voice breaking. I just wanted to be with you, not shipped off somewhere. Mom, don't be stubborn, Sophie snapped, her patience thinning. We've decided. It's for your own good. The house isn't a hospital. You'll only hurt yourself staying there. It's all set. They'll pick you up tomorrow. The call ended abruptly, leaving Emily with nothing but the echo of her daughter's dismissal. The next morning, an ambulance arrived at her upscale condo in Lincoln Park. The driver and a tired-looking orderly packed her things, her silk robe, a few books, a photo of her kids from happier days, while Emily sat on the edge of her bed, her heart heavy with betrayal. Don't worry, the orderly muttered, his voice gruff but kind. They'll fix you up at the hospital. She nodded, too drained to reply, and let them wheel her away. At Chicago General, they settled her into a small room with stark white walls and a creaky bed. She lay there, staring at the ceiling again, the weight of abandonment pressing down. All she'd wanted was her family, a last chance to feel their warmth. Instead, they turned her plea into a problem to solve, a box to check off. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "Don't I deserve more than this?" But the quiet didn't last. That afternoon, the door swung open, and there they were, Jake and Sophie, striding in with purpose. Jake clutched a folder, his jaw tight, while Sophie lingered behind, scrolling on her phone. Behind them stood a man in a suit, a notary, his expression stiff and professional. "Mom, how you holding up?" Jake asked, but his tone was flat, his eyes scanning the room like he was sizing up a deal. Emily propped herself up, her pulse quickening. "Jake? Sophie? What are you doing here?" Her voice trembled, a mix of confusion and dread. Jake tossed the folder onto the bedside table and crossed his arms. "Mom, let's cut the crap. We're here to settle something important." He nodded at the papers. "That's your will. Sign it and we're done." Emily's breath caught, her gaze darting between her son, her daughter, and the notary. The room spun for a moment as the truth sank in. They weren't here for her. They were here for her money, her company, her life's work. And they thought she was already gone. Emily Jones sat propped up in her hospital bed, the folder Jake had tossed onto the table lying there like a loaded gun. Her chest ached, not just from the illness gnawing at her lungs, but from the raw, jagged wound of betrayal. The sterile air of Chicago General felt thicker now, suffocating, as the notary's pen scratched across a clipboard and Sophie's thumbs tapped incessantly on her phone. Jake paced near the window, his broad shoulders tense, his dark hair mussed like he'd raked his hands through it one too many times. "Mom, it's simple," he said, not even looking at her. "Sign the papers, and we'll handle everything. You don't need to worry about it." "Worry about it?" Emily's voice cracked, disbelief sharpening her words. She stared at her son, the boy she'd raised with bedtime stories and late-night talks about his dreams, now reduced to this cold, calculating stranger. "You think I'm worried about paperwork? Jake, I'm lying here fighting to breathe, and you're asking me to sign my life away like it's a business deal." Sophie glanced up from her phone, her green eyes narrowing. "Mom, don't make this a thing. We're your kids. It's normal to sort this out. You've been saying you're not well, so—" She trailed off, shrugging as if that explained everything. Emily's hands clenched the thin hospital blanket, her knuckles whitening. "Sort out? You haven't asked how I'm feeling, how the tests went. Nothing. You just waltz in here with a notary." She flicked her gaze to the suited man hovering awkwardly by the door. "And expect me to hand over everything I built because you're ready to bury me?" Jake stopped pacing, turning to face her with a scowl. Mom, come on. You're being dramatic. We're not burying you. We're just being practical. If something happens, we don't want to deal with probate for months. It's for all of us. For all of us, Emily echoed, her voice dropping to a whisper. She looked at them, Jake with his tailored jacket, Sophie with her designer purse, and saw not her children, but vultures circling a carcass. Her company, her savings, the condo in Lincoln Park, they didn't care about her. They cared about what she'd leave behind. The realization hit like a punch, stealing her breath more than the illness ever had. Before she could respond, the door creaked open, and a young woman slipped inside, balancing a mop and a bucket. She froze, her wide brown eyes darting between the tense faces in the room. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, she stammered, her voice soft but warm. She was maybe 25, with light brown hair pulled into a messy bun, her white janitor's uniform slightly wrinkled. I can come back later. No, it's fine, Emily said quickly, seizing the distraction. Stay, please. There was something in the girl's hesitant smile, a flicker of kindness, that felt like a lifeline in this sea of indifference. Jake waved a hand dismissively. We're almost done here anyway. Mom, just sign it and we'll go. He nodded at the notary, who stepped forward, holding out the pen like it was a peace offering. Emily's gaze hardened. I need time to think, she said, her tone firm despite the tremor in her hands. This isn't a decision I'm making in 5 minutes with you breathing down my neck. Sophie huffed, rolling her eyes. Fine, whatever. We'll come back tomorrow. But don't drag this out, Mom. She grabbed her purse, and Jake followed, muttering something under his breath as they stormed out, the notary trailing behind like a scolded dog. The door slammed shut, leaving Emily alone with the janitor girl and the echo of her children's greed. The young woman set her bucket down, glancing at Emily with a mix of curiosity and concern. Rough day, huh? She said, offering a small, lopsided smile. I'm Leah, by the way. I usually clean this wing in the afternoons. Emily, she replied, managing a faint nod. And yeah, you could say that. She leaned back against the pillows, exhaustion washing over her. Leah moved quietly, wiping down the bedside table, her presence oddly comforting in its simplicity. After a moment, Leah paused, holding up a small paper bag she'd pulled from her pocket. I brought this for Mrs. Carter down the hall, but she's asleep. It's just a slice of apple pie. My mom made it. You want it? Looks like you could use a pick-me-up. Emily blinked, caught off guard by the gesture. You don't have to. It's no trouble, Leah insisted, setting the bag on the table. It's homemade. Mom says food's better when it's made with heart. She grinned, and Emily couldn't help but smile back, however weakly. Thanks, Leah, she said, her voice softening. She opened the bag, the sweet scent of cinnamon and apples wafting up, a tiny rebellion against the hospital's sterile chill. They talked for a bit, small things like the weather outside, the way the lake looked at sunset. Leah's easy warmth chipped away at the ice that had settled in Emily's chest, and for the first time in days, she felt human again. But the peace didn't last. Later that evening, her phone buzzed with a voicemail from her lawyer, Mark Hensley. She played it, her heart sinking as his calm, measured voice filled the room. Emily, it's Mark. I hate to bother you, but I found something odd in the company accounts. Looks like Jake tried to access your personal funds last week. Use an old power of attorney you signed years ago. The bank flagged it, so nothing went through, but you should know. Call me when you can. Emily set the phone down, her hand shaking. Jake hadn't just come for the will. He'd already tried to take what wasn't his. And Sophie, with her fake concern, was likely in on it too. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was calculated, a heist plan behind her back. She thought of all the years she'd poured into the business. Late nights, missed school plays, every sacrifice to give them a future. And now they were clawing at it like it was theirs to steal. She stared at the pie, untouched on the table, and then at the folder Jake had left. An idea sparked, sharp and defiant. If they thought she was done, they were wrong. She grabbed her phone again, dialing Mark. Mark, it's Emily, she said when he picked up, her voice steady now, fueled by a quiet fury. I need you to do something for me. Rewrite my will. Tonight. Tonight. Mark sounded surprised. Are you sure? What's changed? Everything, she said. I'm cutting Jake and Sophie out. The company, the money, it's not going to them. Set up a trust for a charity, something for sick kids, I don't care, you pick. And there's someone else. A girl named Leah. She works here at the hospital. I want her to have enough to change her life. Can you make it happen? Mark hesitated, then agreed. I'll draft it and bring it by tomorrow morning. But Emily, this is big. You're sure about this? Never been sure, she replied, a faint smile tugging at her lips. She hung up, leaning back with a strange sense of relief. It wasn't revenge. It was justice, a way to take back what little control she had left. She didn't know Leah well, but the girl's kindness had lit a spark in her, a reminder that family wasn't always blood. The next morning, Mark arrived with a new will, a thick stack of papers that felt like armor. Emily signed it, her signature shaky but resolute, as Leah mopped the floor nearby, oblivious to the gift she'd just been given. Emily watched her, wondering what she'd say when she found out. But that could wait. For now, she had a bigger fight ahead, facing Jake and Sophie when they returned, armed with their greed and her secret weapon. The fluorescent lights of Emily Jones's hospital room buzzed faintly, casting stark shadows across the white walls. She sat upright in bed, the new will tucked safely in the drawer of her bedside table, its pages a silent rebellion against the betrayal that had festered overnight. Her hands rested on the blanket, steady now, though her heart thudded with a mix of dread and determination. Outside, Chicago's skyline glittered through the window, a cold, indifferent witness to the storm brewing within these four walls. She'd barely slept, replaying Mark's voicemail about Jake's attempt to siphon her funds, each word fueling the fire that had replaced her despair. The door swung open at noon, and there they were, Jake and Sophie, striding in with the notary trailing like a shadow. Jake's face was a mask of barely contained frustration, his jaw tight, while Sophie clutched her phone like a shield, her lips pursed in a thin line. The notary, a wiry man with thinning hair, adjusted his glasses nervously, sensing the tension that crackled in the air. "Mom, let's get this over with," Jake said, dropping the same folder from yesterday onto the table with a thud. "We've got places to be." Emily met his gaze, her hazel eyes sharp despite the fatigue etching lines into her face. "Good to see you too, Jake," she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "Sophie, nice of you to look up from your screen for once." Sophie rolled her eyes, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. "Mom, don't start. We're here to help you, okay? Just sign the damn papers so we can all move on." "Help me." Emily's laugh was brittle, cutting through the room like glass. "You mean help yourselves? I know what you've been up to, Jake. Trying to dip into my accounts behind my back? Did you think I wouldn't find out?" Jake froze, his hand hovering over the folder. For a split second, his confident facade cracked, but he recovered quickly, scoffing. "What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. You're paranoid, Mom. Probably the meds talking." "Don't lie to me," she snapped, her voice rising. "The bank flagged it. You use an old power of attorney. Thought you could sneak in before I was even cold. And you, Sophie," she turned to her daughter, who flinched slightly, "don't pretend you didn't know. You're in this together, aren't you?" Sophie's cheeks flushed, but she jutted her chin defiantly. "Mom, you're blowing this out of proportion. We're just trying to secure what's ours. You've been sick. You can't expect us to sit around waiting for whatever." "Waiting for me to die, you mean?" Emily finished, her words heavy with accusation. She leaned forward, ignoring the ache in her chest. "You didn't come to see me when I begged you. You didn't call, didn't care. But the second you smelled money, here you are, pens ready. You're not my kids right now, you're scavengers." Jake slammed his hand on the table, making the notary jump. "Enough with the guilt trip, Mom. We're your family, by law, by blood. You can't just cut us out because you're mad. Sign the will, or we'll make this harder than it needs to be." Emily's lips curled into a faint, bitter smile. "Oh, I've already made it harder. You're too late. The will's been changed. Signed, sealed, and notarized last night. And guess what? Your names aren't in it." The room went deathly silent, the weight of her words sinking in like a stone. Jake's face drained of color, his mouth opening and closing as if he couldn't find air. Sophie dropped her phone onto the bed, her eyes wide with shock. "What?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're joking, right?" "No joke," Emily said, her tone unwavering. "You don't get a dime. Not the company, not the condo, not a single cent. I gave it to people who deserve it. People who don't see me as a paycheck." Jake exploded, his voice booming. "You can't do this. We're your kids. You think you can just erase us? Who'd you give it to, huh? That lawyer of yours? Some charity?" He paused, his eyes narrowing as a thought struck him. Wait, it's her, isn't it? That janitor girl who's been sniffing around. What's her name, Leah? Emily's silence was answer enough. Sophie gasped, clutching her chest like she'd been slapped. Are you serious, Mom? Some random cleaning lady? You're giving everything to her over us. She's not random, Emily said quietly, her gaze steady. She's been here when you weren't. She brought me pie, talked to me, treated me like a person, not a bank account. That's more than you've done in years. Jake laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. Oh, that's rich. She's playing you, Mom. You think she cares? She's after the same thing we are. She's just better at hiding it. You're delusional if you think she's your savior. Maybe, Emily conceded, her voice soft but firm. But I'd rather trust her than you. And here's the kicker. I've got proof of what you try to pull with my accounts. It's all recorded, Jake. One call to Mark, and I can turn this into a fraud case. So go ahead, push me. See what happens. Sophie's bravado faltered, her hands trembling as she picked up her phone. You're bluffing. You wouldn't do that to us. Try me, Emily said, pulling her phone from under the blanket. She tapped the screen, revealing a voice memo app, the timestamp from their last visit glowing in red. Yesterday's little tantrum? It's all here. Sign it, and we're done, you said. We'll handle everything. Sound a lot like coercion to a judge, don't you think? Jake's fist clenched, his knuckles white. You're insane. You'd ruin us over this. You ruined yourselves, she shot back. I gave you everything, love, a future, and you threw it away for greed. Now you get to live with it. The notary cleared his throat, stepping forward awkwardly. Mrs. Jones, if you've already signed a new will, there's nothing we can do here today. He gestured toward the door, eager to escape the fallout. Jake rounded on him. Stay out of this. He turned back to Emily, his voice low and venomous. This isn't over, Mom. You think you've won? We'll fight this. You can't just erase us. You can try, Emily said, leaning back against the pillows, her energy waning but her resolve unshaken. But it's done. Legally, airtight. Mark made sure of it. So go ahead, waste your time. I'm not changing my mind. Sophie grabbed Jake's arm, her voice shrill. Let's go. She's lost it. We'll figure this out without her. She stormed out, heels clicking furiously on the tile, and Jake followed, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. Emily exhaled, the tension draining from her body, leaving her hollow but strangely free. She reached for the drawer, her fingers brushing the new will, a lifeline she'd forged in the dark. Then the door creaked open again, and Leah peeked in, her mop in hand. Everything okay? She asked, her brow furrowing at the sight of Emily's pale face. Yeah, Emily lied, forcing a smile. Just family stuff. You're a sight for sore eyes, though. Leah grinned, stepping inside. Good, 'cause I brought cookies this time. Mom's recipe. Want one? Emily nodded, the simple kindness piercing through the chaos. As Leah set the cookies down, chatting about her day, Emily felt a spark of something she'd lost. Hope. She'd drawn a line in the sand, and now the real battle was coming. But with Leah's quiet strength beside her, she wasn't fighting alone. The hospital room felt lighter after Jake and Sophie's stormy exit, as if their anger had sucked the weight from the air and left Emily Jones with a fragile but growing sense of peace. She leaned back against the pillows, her breath shallow but steady, the new will still a secret shield in the drawer beside her. The late afternoon sun filtered through the blinds of Chicago General, casting golden stripes across the floor, a quiet contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. Her hands rested on the blanket, no longer trembling, though exhaustion clung to her like a second skin. She'd faced her children down, drawn a line, and now she waited for the fallout. The door creaked open, and Leah slipped inside, her janitor's uniform rumpled from a long shift, a canvas tote bag slung over her shoulder. Her brown eyes lit up when she saw Emily awake. Hey, you're still with us, she said with a teasing grin, setting her mop against the wall. I half expected you to be napping after whatever went down earlier. Sounded intense from the hall. Emily managed a faint smile, the warmth in Leah's voice a balm to her frayed nerves. Intense is one word for it, she said, her tone dry. My kids aren't happy with me. Let's just say that. Leah pulled a chair closer, plopping down with a sigh. Family can be a mess. Mine's not perfect either. Mom's always working, and I'm just trying to keep up. But you look like you held your own in there. What happened? Emily hesitated, then decided on the truth, or part of it. They wanted me to sign over everything. My company, my money. Thought I'd just roll over because I'm sick. I told them it's not happening. They didn't take it well. Leah whistled low, shaking her head. That's cold. You build all that, right? I've heard the nurses talk. Emily Jones, the real estate queen. And they're just what? Waiting for you to check out. Pretty much, Emily said, the bitterness softening into something resigned. But I got other plans. They don't know it yet, but they're not getting a thing. She didn't mention the will. Not yet. Leah didn't need to know she was part of it. That could wait until the dust settled. Leah reached into her bag, pulling out a worn paperback with a bright cover. Healing through movement. Well, screw him, she said bluntly, then blushed. Sorry, my mouth runs ahead sometimes. Anyway, I brought this. Found it at the library. Thought it might help you feel stronger. You know, little steps. Emily raised an eyebrow, taking the book. You think I'm up for jumping jacks in this state? Leah laughed, a sound that bounced off the sterile walls. Not yet, but there's stuff in there you could do lying down, hand stretches, breathing stuff. I've been reading up since I started coming by. You're tougher than you think, Emily. The sincerity in her words caught Emily off guard, stirring something deep, a flicker of hope she hadn't felt in months. She flipped through the pages, the diagrams of simple exercises blurring as her eyes prickled. Thanks, Leah, she said softly. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to, Leah replied, shrugging like it was nothing. You're not just some patient to me. You're, I don't know, like a friend now. She busied herself unpacking a thermos from her bag, pouring steaming tea into a cup. Chamomile. Mom swears by it. Says it fixes everything. Emily took the cup, the warmth seeping into her hands, grounding her. They talked for an hour, about Leah's mom working double shifts at a diner, about Emily's early days hustling to buy her first property. Leah's easy presence filled the room with life, chasing away the ghosts of Jake and Sophie's greed. By the time Leah left, promising to return tomorrow, Emily felt a shift. She wasn't just surviving. She wanted to fight. The next morning, Dr. Patel, her attending physician, knocked briskly and stepped inside, his clipboard in hand. Emily, good to see you awake, he said, his tone professional but kind. We've got your latest scans back, and I need to talk options. She straightened, her pulse quickening. Options? I thought we were past that. You said surgery was too risky weeks ago. He nodded, pulling up a chair. That was true then. Your condition was too unstable. But you've held steady lately, better than we expected. There's a procedure we could try, a resection to remove the worst of the damage. It's not a cure, but it could buy you time, maybe even a good stretch of it. The catch is it's a gamble. You need to decide soon. Emily's mind raced, fear tangling with a strange, stubborn spark. How soon? Tomorrow, ideally, Dr. Patel said. We prep you today, operate in the afternoon. I won't sugarcoat it. There's a chance it could go wrong. But there's also a chance it works. What do you think? She stared at the ceiling, the weight of the choice pressing down. Can I have a few hours to think it over? Of course, he said, standing. I'll check back this afternoon. He left, and Emily sank into silence, her thoughts a storm of what-ifs. Surgery meant hope, but it also meant risk, pain, failure, the end coming faster than she'd planned. Leah arrived an hour later, her tote bag stuffed with a small blanket and a container of soup. She took one look at Emily's face and frowned. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Emily exhaled, setting the tea aside. The doctor came by. They want to do surgery tomorrow. Says it might help, but it's not guaranteed. I am scared, Leah. What if I don't make it? Leah sat on the edge of the bed, her expression softening. That's big. No wonder you're freaked out. But can I say something? She waited for Emily's nod before continuing. You've already done stuff I didn't think you could. Remember when you couldn't lift your arm? Now you're sitting up, talking smack about your kids. You're a fighter, Emily. If there's a shot, why not take it? It's not that simple, Emily said, her voice trembling. This isn't stretching my fingers. It's my life. What if I'm not strong enough? Leah took her hand, her grip firm but gentle. You are, and you're not alone. I'll be here, every day, bugging you with tea and bad jokes until you're sick of me. You've got more in you than you think. I see it. Emily's throat tightened, Leah's faith cutting through her doubt. You really believe that? Damn right I do, Leah said with a grin. And if it works, we're celebrating. Maybe hit up New York, see the Statue of Liberty or something. You in? A laugh escaped Emily, weak but real. You're relentless, you know that. Guilty, Leah replied, squeezing her hand. So, what's it gonna be? Emily looked at her, then out the window at the city she'd conquered once before. Okay, she said finally, her voice steadying. I'll do it. For me. For you. But you'd better stick around. Promise, Leah said, her eyes bright. You're stuck with me now. That afternoon, Dr. Patel returned, and Emily gave her consent, signing the forms with a hand that didn't shake. Leah stayed, helping her through the prep, adjusting pillows, cracking jokes about hospital food, until the nurses wheeled her away. As the gurney rolled down the hall, Emily felt fear, yes, but also a quiet strength, borrowed from the girl who'd become her anchor. Whatever came next, she wasn't facing it alone. Emily Jones woke to the soft beep of monitors, her eyelids fluttering against the harsh light of the recovery room at Chicago General. Her chest felt heavy, a dull ache radiating from the surgical site, but she was alive, breathing, aware, tethered to the world by a fragile thread of triumph. The fog of anesthesia lingered, blurring the edges of her thoughts, but one image cut through, Leah's face, bright with that stubborn hope that had dragged Emily this far. She turned her head slowly, wincing, and there she was, Leah, slumped in a chair by the bed, her head resting on her hand, a faint snore escaping her lips. Emily's lips twitched into a weak smile. Leah, she rasped, her voice barely a whisper. Leah jolted awake, her brown eyes wide with relief as they locked onto Emily's. You're up, she exclaimed, scrambling to her feet. Oh my God, you scared me. How do you feel? Are you okay? She hovered, hands fluttering like she wanted help, but didn't know where to start. Like I got hit by a truck, Emily murmured, but I'm here. Guess that's something. She shifted, grimacing at the pull of stitches, but the pain was proof she'd made it through. Leah grinned, tears glinting in her eyes. More than something. Dr. Patel came by, while you were out, said it went better than they hoped. They got the worst of it. You're not out of the woods, but you've got a real shot now. She grabbed a cup of water from the table, holding it to Emily's lips with care. Drink. You're a badass, you know that. Emily sipped, the coolness soothing her parched throat. Only because you wouldn't let me quit, she said, her voice gaining strength. You're still here. Didn't think you'd actually camp out. Told you I'd stick around, Leah said, settling back into the chair. No way I was missing this. We've got plans, remember? New York's waiting. Emily chuckled, a faint sound that turned into a cough. Yeah, you and your big ideas. Let me get out of this bed first. But the thought lingered, a spark of possibility she hadn't dared imagine before. The days that followed were a slow climb. Leah became a fixture in the room, arriving each morning with her tote bag of tricks, soup, books, a tiny radio that crackled with old jazz tunes. She coaxed Emily through exercises from the Healing Through Movement book, counting reps as Emily squeezed her fingers or lifted her arms an inch higher each time. Look at you, Leah said one afternoon, beaming as Emily sat up unaided. Told you you're tougher than you think. You're a nag, Emily shot back, but her grin betrayed her gratitude. With Leah's help, she progressed, sitting, standing, then shuffling to the window with a walker, the Chicago skyline, a quiet cheerleader to her recovery. Each step was a victory, a reclaiming of a life she'd nearly lost. But the shadow of Jake and Sophie loomed. A week after the surgery, Mark Hensley, her lawyer, called with news. They filed a suit, he said, his voice grim through the speakerphone, claiming you were coerced into changing the will, that you weren't of sound mind. They're naming Leah as the manipulator. It's a long shot, but they're pushing hard. Emily's stomach twisted, her newfound strength tested. They're desperate, she said, glancing at Leah, who sat quietly, her face pale. What do we do? I've got the recordings, Mark replied. Your talks with them, their threats, it's solid evidence. And the hospital staff can testify to your clarity. We'll counter it. You just focus on getting better. Leah spoke up, her voice small. Emily, I didn't want this. If it's easier, take me out of the will. I don't need. No, Emily cut in firm. This isn't about you giving up. It's about them facing what they did. You're in this because you earned it, Leah. They don't get to win. The legal battle unfolded over weeks, a tense backdrop to Emily's recovery. Mark presented the recordings in court, Jake's barked demands, Sophie's callous dismissals, alongside statements from Dr. Patel and nurses who'd seen Emily's resolve. Leah testified too, her voice steady as she recounted their bond, no hint of greed in her words. Jake and Sophie's case crumbled, their lies exposed under the judge's scrutiny. The ruling came swift and final. The new will stood. The trust for sick children would get the bulk, Leah a modest share, and Jake and Sophie nothing. Emily heard the news from her hospital bed, now upgraded to a room with a view, her walker parked nearby. Mark's voice crackled with satisfaction. They're done, Emily. No appeal. They've got no ground left. You're free. Free. The words settled over her like a warm blanket. She thanked Mark, hung up, and looked at Leah, who'd brought a celebratory cupcake with a single candle. Guess we won, Emily said, her eyes misty. We did, Leah replied, lighting the candle. Blow out. Make a wish. Emily closed her eyes, wishing not for wealth or revenge, but for more days like this, simple, real, alive. She blew, and Leah cheered, the sound echoing with joy. A month later, Emily walked out of Chicago General on her own, Leah at her side, the spring air crisp against her skin. She'd gained weight, color returning to her cheeks, her steps slow but sure. The illness wasn't gone, but it was managed, a shadow she could live with. They boarded a train to New York. Emily, Leah, and Leah's mom, Carla, a wiry woman with a laugh like a bell. The trip was Emily's gift, a thank you for the family she'd found when her own had failed her. In New York, they stood atop the Empire State Building, the city sprawling below in a chaos of lights and life. Emily leaned on the railing, wind tugging at her hair, and breathed deep. I thought I'd never see this, she said, her voice thick. Thought I was done. Leah slipped an arm around her shoulders. You're not done. You're just starting. Look at all this. We made it. Carla nodded, snapping a photo. You two are something else. Thanks for this, Emily. Means the world to us. It's me who should thank you, Emily said, turning to them. You gave me back my fight. My kids took everything they could, but you gave me something better, hope. Back in Chicago, Emily poured her energy into a new venture, the Second Family Fund, a charity for patients like her, abandoned by those they trusted most. She funded it with her remaining wealth, Leah helping with outreach, Carla cooking for events. Jake and Sophie faded from her life, their silence a consequence they'd earned. Emily didn't gloat. She moved on, building something good from the ashes. One evening, sitting in her condo with Leah over tea, Emily looked out at the skyline she'd once ruled. I used to think family was blood, she said, her voice soft. But it's not. It's this, people who show up. Leah smiled, raising her cup. To second families, then? To second chances, Emily added, clinking her cup against Leah's. The city hummed beyond the glass, but here, in this quiet moment, she'd found her victory, not in wealth or vengeance, but in the life she'd reclaimed, surrounded by those who truly cared.